Hello, my name's Tegan Bennett Daylight, and this is my new book, The Details, a collection of essays about love, death and reading. In this collection I'm describing how my reading has nourished my life and how life has informed my reading. And I'm trying to show you that it's the small points of connection, the details that really matter in our lives. The collection is anchored by 3 essays called Detail 1, Detail 2 and Detail 3. Detail 3 is my favourite, and so that's the one I'm going to read to you from. My old friend Patrick sent me a scan of a page torn out of an exercise book, scribbled on in a loose, fast-moving hand, the hand of someone speaking to themselves, barely seeing the page. It's written by David McComb, the lead singer of Western Australian band The Triffids, about their 1986 album Born Sandy Devotional. Patrick and my husband Russell and I spend some of our idle time making lists and sending them to each other. When Prince died, we each made a list of our 10 favourite Prince songs, and then Russell compiled them into a playlist. There were several overlaps, including Mountains from Parade and The Ballad of Dorothy Parker from Sign of the Times. We also make lists of our favourite albums, of our heroes and heroines, and of our favourite books. It's a way of speaking to each other about a long shared history. The 3 of us have been together in one way or another for 30 or more years. Russell's favourite album is Prince's Parade. He has its barcode tattooed on his left bicep. Patrick has 2 favourites, Parade and Liberty Bell and the Black Diamond Express, the Go-Betweens' 4th album. My favourite album of all time, without hesitation, is Born Sandy Devotional. McComb writes, "The theme will be unrequited love, but the language will reach way above and beyond that, very literary to prevent it being soppy, muscular, slow, droning, long background strings, deft, jazzy bass and drums." Why is it my favourite album? It's because it so willingly reaches for greatness. It is very literary. But if Robert Forster of the Go-Betweens was Charlotte Bronte, more intellectual, more controlled, then David McComb was Emily, and Born Sandy Devotional his Wuthering Heights, a masterpiece, both helpless and willed. The Triffids wrote landscapes of sound, grand songs to accommodate the grand feelings and deep, commanding vocals of its lead singer. They made a kind of operatic beauty out of simple things. They were prepared to find Western Australia, Perth no less, a place of great passions. Born Sandy Devotional, with its mad, apparently meaningless title, says yes to art. I remember where I was when I learned that David McComb had died just before his 37th birthday. He'd had a heart transplant a few years earlier, having ruined his cardiovascular system with excessive drinking and drug taking. Finally, the heart rejected him, or he it. Another note, this time from McComb's London diaries, counts beers drunk on an ordinary night out. Personally, it was definitely a light night as far as imbibing goes, 9 or 11 pints, which is practically technically a night off, a night on the wagon per se. Despite the emerging narrative of disaster, I love this sentence. Its sprouting ugliness, all those self-conscious quotation marks. I love that pompous per se, which is only there for the sound of it. I love the showing off, the self-dramatising, the youthful use of words like imbibing. I love the sound of practically technically, like dice cracking together. The Triffids, and David McComb in particular, taught me that writing like this, being grandiose, showing off, indulging the self, wasn't a crime, or it wasn't, if through the practice of it you could produce art. Annie Dillard says, "One of the things I know about writing is this: spend it all, shoot it, play it, lose it, all, right away, every time. These things fill from behind, from beneath, like well water. Anything you do not give freely and abundantly becomes lost to you." It was 1999, and I was driving somewhere in the dark, most likely to or from Sydney, from or to the Blue Mountains. The radio played Wide Open Road from Born Sandy Devotional. Tears coursed down my face. I felt the odd, displaced grief of losing someone you never knew. Grief for McComb's loneliness, his or all of ours in the face of death. And grief because I'd never had the chance to say to him, Music like yours allows art in others. It is a part of who I am, and because of that, David McComb still lives. In Moby Dick, Herman Melville writes, "Out of the trunks the branches grow, out of them the twigs. So in productive subjects grow the chapters." It took me a long time to come to Moby Dick. I thought it would be a heavy tale of adventure, of men with fierce brows ploughing through wild seas. I thought the whole book would be like this, just the ceaseless male pursuit of a lumbering metaphor. There are plenty of fierce brows, as it turns out, and some wild seas, but there is also this. Steering northward from the Crozets, we fell in with vast meadows of brit, the minute yellow substance upon which the right whale largely feeds. For leagues and leagues it undulated around us, so that we seemed to be sailing through boundless fields of ripe and golden wheat. On the second day, numbers of right whales were seen, who, secure from the attach of a sperm whaler like the Pequod, with open jaws swam sluggishly through the brit, which, adhering to the fringing fibres of that wondrous Venetian blind in their mouths, was in that manner separated from the water that escaped at the lip. As morning mowers, who side by side slowly and seethingly advance their scythes through the long wet grass of marshy means, even so these monsters swam, making strange grassy cutting sounds, and leaving behind them endless swathes of blue upon the yellow sea. Herman Melville was reading the works of Shakespeare for the first time when he wrote Moby Dick, and these passages demonstrate that. My mother used to say that what she loved best about Shakespeare was that he didn't care about mixing his metaphors. He took arms against a sea of troubles. In Moby Dick, Melville was the same. He piled idea on idea, image on image. He reached into himself and threw out loop after loop of a seemingly never-ending rope of thought. It is distracting sometimes. That Venetian blind makes me forget the central image in these paragraphs, the mowers, the whales passing, mouths open through paddocks of brit or krill, cutting it down, mowing it. One's also distracted by the alliteration, the fringing fibres, side by side, slowly and seethingly, the marshy means. But what riches of language dwell here. James Wood says we should not pity Melville, even though his masterpiece was initially met with almost total silence. For in writing Moby Dick, Melville wrote the novel that is every writer's dream of freedom. It is as though he painted a patch of sky for the imprisoned. In using words, so many of them, Melville scorned temperance. He spent it all, lost it all, right away. We should not think of what it must have been to write what he surely knew was his greatest book, and to hear almost nothing back. Born Sandy Devotional was widely praised, although the critical success of the Triffids never did translate into significant international fame or serious money. But McComb too was painting his patch of sky. Any artist lucky enough to be doing their best work will tell you that the work is enough.